Jonathan Broder, he's a Washington-based senior writer for Newsweek covering defense and foreign policy. The DPRK lashing out about the sanctions. I guess if you look at it from their perspective, Mike Pompeo comes to Pyongyang, send back 3 detainees with them. They halt the nuclear test. They feel like they're making efforts. When is the U.S. going to pony up? I guess it's just how you perceive it, whether you're Pyongyang or Washington. Where does this go?
Well, the United States feels, even though they're saying that they want to get into a diplomatic process with the North Koreans, there's still a very, very hard line among administration officials. I'm not talking about President Trump now. President Trump represents the sort of the good cop, if you will, the friendly face of American diplomacy. He wants he gets friendly with Kim, with Chairman Kim, but within his administration, for example, the National Security Advisor John Bolton and Secretary of State Pompeo, they are holding a very, very hard line on this. So at the moment, the Americans are basically saying what they've always said, which is we will start lifting concessions when you give us a reason to. And what they want is they want, first of all, an inventory of all of North Korea's nuclear weapons and a schedule for when they're going to destroy them. North Korea, of course, is basically saying for every gesture that we make to the United States, for example, returning the remains of the soldiers, destroying the nuclear bomb test site, we want a lifting of sanctions in return. We want one for one, is what they're basically saying.
It was interesting. I've talked to a lot of Peninsula watchers who said, the payoff is the summit at the end. You pony up all this stuff, then you get to meet with the U.S. president, you get the photo op and all of that. You don't do that at the front end because then things go nowhere. Are they correct? I mean, there were a lot of people saying this was not a very good idea, this Singapore summit.
Well, it would all depend on what it's followed up by. I mean, sometimes you have to break the ice by having a summit. For example, I remember when I was based in the Middle East in the 1970s, Anwar Sadat flew to Jerusalem and broke the ice. And then negotiations began after he met with the Israeli leadership. So there was an example where it started with the summit and it ended up well. It was difficult. But in this case, you have the summit between President Trump and Chairman Kim, but neither side has figured out where they go from there, what the schedule is, what the next step is. And each side basically is afraid to, or reluctant, I should say, to define what that next step is, other than the most hard line, because if they compromise on that, they will look weak among their own people.
Then you have the ROK, which has really kind of kept this door open. You think about the Olympics and how that really opened up the door to all of this. We were talking about football diplomacy just now. Where does that relationship go? They're talking about perhaps a third leader summit. Is the ROK perhaps the key to all of this?
I believe that it's a very important key. I mean, the president of South Korea, Moon Jae-in, I look upon him as the midwife, pretty much, of the American-North Korean meeting between Trump and Kim. He arranged it in his talks with Kim when they met in April and May. When it was on board, and then it suddenly, remember, Trump canceled it because of differences, rhetorical differences. It was Kim who came over to the States and got things back on track again. He's very heavily invested in this. He has been his entire political career. So this third summit between North and South Korea, I think is going to be very important.
Jonathan Broder, pleasure having you in. Thanks so much. We're on deadline working on a story and found time for us. We appreciate it.